From A to Z, it's plain to see. This podcast is about people in my industry. Writers, designers, social media managers. Don't forget the data miners. HRPR, find out who they are and how they made it this far. From A to Z, talk about your family, talk about the goals you reach, talk about the plans you see. Let's get it. Welcome aboard. I'm your host, PK McWhinney, and this is the From A to Z podcast.
Welcome back. This is From A to Z. I'm your host, PK McWhinney. Today's guest is somebody who I look up to personally. He's the co-CEO of one of Africa's one of Africa's biggest, actually, PR agencies. Welcome, Mr. Tom Manners.
What's up, dude?
Thanks you for joining me on From A to Z.
Thanks for having me, man.
I appreciate it. So the point of the show is to go from A to Z. We want to find out where you get your business acumen from. Where did you start out and what actually built up that hunger in you to do what you have done?
Awesome.
So right from the beginning, please can you tell us about your upbringing? What was it like in the Manners household?
Yeah, sure. I was born in Benoni, which is something I don't like to admit to many people. I'm very cautious about how many people I tell that to. It's normally a strategic thing because it's you can sniff out other East people,
East Randers,
and then you're very close. You know, you got that bond that no one else has. But yeah, I was born in Benoni, 1987, and I grew up in a pretty boring sort of South African household. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad initially worked for Nedbank, like way back in the day. He started his own business. My whole family worked in manufacturing. Weirdly enough, went to a awesome school, CBC Boksburg, in Boksburg. Yeah,
Boksburg.
Shock horror. Yeah,
Oh.
right across the road from Boksburg High as well, which was a rough place.
Did you see a couple weird things?
Yeah, man, and like
Scary
Boksburg,
things?
you're going to see a lot of weird things.
Yeah.
But and then I mean, I grew up on a plot actually out in kind of Kempton Parkway from when I was about 7. So kind of isolated in a way, to be honest with you. But really fun. You know, played a lot of cricket, lots and lots of hockey, rode my bike around a bunch, rode like the horses next door and everything, like literally like an idyllic South African boy household. And yeah, I mean, took an early interest into stuff like English and history. My dad was a musician. My whole family actually like played music, so picked up the guitar super young when I was like 11 or 12, and kind of just spent a lot of time on my own, to be honest with you, which sounds like a sad story, but it's not, because obviously we're out in the sticks. And just kind of like generated a bunch of interests until I was 18 and went off to Res at Tux, which was like a shock for a private schoolboy. But it was a good thing. My dad was like, no, you're going to go to Res.
Was that like some type of a lesson your dad was trying to?
It was a leveler. Because I did have a privileged upbringing, and you know, when you grow up in a bit of a bubble, especially in a country like South Africa, it's important that you get a good sense of the lives that everyone leads. And you know, again, when you're in a sort of a private boys' school, sandwiched away in the corner of Boksburg, it might not always be the best situation for you to get a good sense of what the world is actually like. And that was always important to my dad. So sent me off to Res. To a place called College, which is like the most hardcore Afrikaans there is. No one there spoke English. I almost failed Afrikaans in matric. I got 47% for Afrikaans.
I got 49.
Well, dude, like then you know. And so imagine you in matric and then getting sent off 2 months later to a res where no one speaks any English.
Jeez.
And this is still when they were doing hazing and everything like that.
Ooh, yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty intense. But went to Tux for 3 years, studied English, and then went to become a journalist. So I guess that was like my first 23 years in like 1 minute.
In 1 minute, it's cool. We still got more. I want to know about. So you said you grew up on a plot, lots of space, lots of time to get up to all sorts of mischief. I guess I'll give you a story from my childhood. I remember my cousins and my brother and I. We went on a bike ride, and I was known for not using my brakes on my bike. I'd use my shoes, right? Okay. My mom and my aunt would hate that. They hated it. They'd always have to change my shoes, right? One day, long story short, I end up in a neighbor's palisade fence, right? Bike broken, birds chirping. I can't see clearly, but I can see my cousin laughing at me, and I see my girl cousin with her mouth over her hand, like, "What are you doing?" So that was one. That's just one crazy memory. Do you have any like painful memories of things that you might have got up to as a child?
Like so many, like literally so many. I mean, one that relates to that story actually is like I was visiting a friend down in Durban. I think I must have been like 10, and he was living in a block of flats at the time. And Durbs, as you know, is like super hilly. And so there was a really, really steep driveway up to the block of flats where everyone would kind of park underneath. And super into rollerblading at the time. I know, very nerdy, but whatever. So I strap on my rollerblades, and my friend Nick is like, "No, listen, there's two hills. There's one down, and then there's another like 90-degree turn, and then it's kind of like down to the bottom of the driveway." And he's like, "You have to turn off to the first hill. Like, make sure you turn off to the first hill."
Like, you're right.
"Yeah,
I
got
remember,
this."
yeah.
So easy, like no problem. Like obviously I didn't turn off to the first hill.
No.
And smash my head into the gate, which is a solid steel gate. Pretty sure I got a concussion. I still have like a bump on my head from that, like a weird bump. Like, and then we went to the swimming pool, and I was like going 2 meters underwater with obviously a concussion because I had ringing in my ears, and I wasn't like that awake. So yeah, I mean, like tons of that stuff.
Jeez, yeah. I mean, look, as growing up as a boy, I personally, I grew up around, like, I was raised by women, right? So they instilled in me, that independence and stuff like that. What's one lesson that you might have taken from your childhood that you remember, like, till now? Like, one thing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. My dad was always very practical and liked to spend a lot of time trying to instill the value of hard work. And was, although we were privileged, was very focused on not spoiling us and making us do jobs around the house and all that stuff. Anyway, so the one thing he always used to say was, "Nothing worth having is ever easy," and which is like a very popular quote. Obviously, it's not a new one, but like that's always stuck in my head. It's a big thing, like it's always easy to do the easy thing, or the thing that's not painful. But that's not going to actually get you anywhere. So, yeah.
Nothing worth having comes easy. You heard it from Mr. Tom Manners himself. So, is it cool if I call you Mr. Tom Manners? It feels a bit official.
Call me whatever you want, dude. Call me Tom.
Yeah. So I know that you were into fish growing up. That was a thing when you're growing up, and you have a beautiful fish tank back there now. Let's talk about that. Where did that come from? And do you remember your first time getting a fish? Was it one of those goldfish in a bag from the fair?
Yeah. So I mean, like before we get into the fish thing, I have this thing. I get like obsessed about things. So, and like I have no hang-ups about trying to be cool. So like if my imagination is caught up by something, I'm going to go investigate it. Like I started doing carpentry 8 months ago. I'm like obsessed with building tables now. And that's like, okay, now I'm like 33, so I can get away with it. I have 2 kids. But like, it's not the coolest thing in the world. So like the fish thing is the same. So yeah, I was like living in the plots, and I got an idea in my head that I wanted a fish tank. Started with like a tiny little baby fish tank I bought. I'd have an odd job, and then I would walk around the block to the nursery. We had 2 little nurseries there with like little fish stores. This is when like nurseries had little pet stores inside them. And bought a little fish tank, a little 10-liter fish tank. And then that, like, obviously because I'm an obsessive person, that just kind of grew. Then I had like a 400-liter fish tank. And then like I got my dad to get into it, and he built like a 3.5 meter long 4,000-liter fish tank, which is still standing today.
What's your favorite type of fish?
What's my favorite fish? That's a good question, actually. It is my Lenardi wrasse, which is in the tank over there.
Lenardi wrasse. We'll put a picture up of
it. Is a very rare
wrasse.
It's a very rare wrasse off the coast of Australia. You can only get it on the west coast of Australia, and it's beautiful. Looks like a banana. I love it.
Awesome. So let's going back to your childhood just for a little bit more. Is there any advert that stands out to you all these 33 years later? Well, you would never remembered an advert from when you were a newborn.
Yeah.
But what's one advert that stands out to you all these years later?
There's so many, man. I think we were very fortunate to grow up in a country where like the ad making sort of philosophy was incredibly strong. And, I think it's hard to pick one, because I think the 90s were like the golden years of TV advertising in South Africa. That being said, I like distinctly remember the BMW We Take the Benz ad. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't think I remember that.
So it was an ad basically where, and I have to try and get this right now, but basically it's a BMW racing around Chapman's Peak really, really fast, and then just one line comes up and it says, "We take the Benz, but it's BENZ."
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but like that was like, but then there's also like there was a and this is like all Hunt Lascaris, by the way, with Reg Lascaris, and before it became TBWA, they did another one with a mouse running over the steering wheel to show how easy it is to steer a BMW. Then there's all the I'm a glug glug stuff as well, which were amazing, the Sasol ads and stuff like that. So yeah, there's been tons of them. Yeah.
Do you want to talk more about BMW now or later?
We'll talk about BMW whenever you want, man.
Let's talk about more about BMW. So, in terms of new business for Clockwork, your company, you just got some work for BMW.
Yeah.
Please tell us about that.
Yeah, it's a nice new relationship. We've started working with them on all their corporate public relations. So it's like a dream brand for me. I think starting when I was watching those ads, and my dad always drove BMWs, and so did I, kind of as soon as I could afford one. So yeah, it's like a very iconic brand to work on in this country, I think, specifically. I mean, they've been here for so long, actually. It's not many people know. They were like the first real manufacturer besides for Toyota in this country, and so they've got a lot of South African heritage, and it's a nice feeling to be able to work with brands like that. It's like, it feels like we're 10 years into the journey next year, and being able to generate enough trust from brands like BMW feels good. Really, really good.
Yeah. So yeah, 10 years into the journey. Let's go to the beginning of that journey. Correct me if I'm wrong. The journey started at My Broadband when you met your co-CEO of Clockwork, Nick Simmons.
Indeed.
Please tell us about that and how you guys met.
Yeah. So,
well, obviously you met at work, but like, how did you guys kick it off?
So we didn't meet at work, actually, and I'll take it two steps back to kind of give you the context. So I was 18 and in bands at the time, and Nick's slightly older than me. He's 3 years older than me. He was the singer of a band, and we used to play together a lot at clubs around Joburg, and we went on a little tour to Bloemfontein, which is infamous, which we're not going to speak about. And anyway, so we were just having a beer one day, and kind of started becoming friends, and we started a band together, actually, which later became the band I guess that I focus most of my time on. And then I just graduated. I was working as a digital copywriter, but this is in 2008, a digital copywriter for an online gambling platform. So I was writing like SEO scripts for like slots. This is my first job, which is horrible, by the way. I'd never do that. Okay. And Nick, who was super into gaming and PCs and stuff, had found himself a job as the first journalist at My Broadband, which is funny now because My Broadband's huge. It's one of the biggest websites in the country. It's got business tech and all the rest of it. But Nick was literally the first journalist there. And I was like, kind of like proud about the fact that I was a technophobe. Like, I wasn't stupid when it came to tech, but like I didn't know much about it. And Nick said, "We got this job for you. Like, there's a job here." And I was like, damn, I'm earning like no money right now. I'll do anything. And this job earns 10 grand a month. So I was like,
there,
I've made it.
Yeah.
So I got an interview, and I spent the whole weekend cramming tech news, and went into the interview and aced it. Nice. And got the job.
Gotta fake it till you make it.
Yeah, and then like...
were you faking it though? You said you were a techno-phobe. Right?
I definitely didn't know as much as I let on. And I probably shouldn't have done that in hindsight. But I was young and stupid. And if Rudolph and Cara ever see this, I'm sorry. I think you guys know this already though. But yeah, they really kind of like handheld me. And Rudolph taught me actually everything I know about journalism, writing, etc., which is strange because he was a maths professor at UJ before he started My Broadband. Anyway, I'm taking it's a long story, but Nick and I were working there together. Nick started My Gaming, which is sadly no longer a thing, and I was the main journalist at My Broadband, and we just used to spend every day together writing tech news, basically. And then eventually I left My Broadband. I went on to do a bit of journalism work elsewhere, and then went into freelance in 2011 in April. I started doing freelance work and picked up just writing work. Really, obviously we'd met a lot of PR firms and stuff that were pitching stories to us as journalists, and I was like, well, I can do tech writing, and that was a very and still is quite a unique skill back then, and not a lot of people had enterprise tech experience specifically, so I could write about servers and all sorts, and so I was writing for like IBM and stuff like that, and then it was like magic. Suddenly, like I got very like hungry, and I was like, oh wow, you can make decent amount of money doing this, and I was like hustling, and I hate that word by the way, but like hustling and like running around and trying to find as much freelance writing work as I could, and eventually I had too much, and I said to Nick, I was like, this is a good thing, man. You should do this. And he was getting a bit frustrated, wanted to do something else. And that was in the September of 2011. And he put in his resignation the one night we were chatting. And that was that. And we've been working together ever since.
Ever since, wow. It's a huge step in the fact that you made that decision and you went for it. And nearly 10 years later, we're sitting here and you're employing over 100 people. How many? What are the numbers? It's over
110 or something. I don't know.
Over 110 people supporting so many families. It's awesome. I'm sure that feels awesome, right?
Yeah, it feels great, man.
Yeah.
It's important to like stop and smell the roses sometimes. I'm like a very future focused person, very ambitious, and as soon as you get to 100 you want to be at 200. Not that people is a good marker of success, it's not. You could hire all the people in the world and be bankrupt, but it could be revenue or clients or whatever, but it's important to step back. Oops. Sorry. It's important to step back and just kind of take a moment and just be like, yeah, this is something impressive that we've built, and to be proud of yourself, it's been a crazy journey, but the last few years have definitely leveled out a bit more. It's been a lot more enjoyable in the last few years, and it's a good feeling, man.
Obviously there've been good times, great times. We're here now. Do you want to talk about some of the more challenging times where you sat and maybe you and Nick were like, dude, where do we, and how did you get through that?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of challenging times. Building a business is not easy, and I think everyone says that, so it becomes a bit of a platitude, but it's real. Especially building a business that's predicated on people, which is what an advertising agency is. A lot of businesses have stock, or they sell stuff, or they build a house or whatever. We sell ideas and things that people create. And so that requires a lot of man hours, and there's some complexity in that. And I think that was the first challenge that we had to understand, is when you go from, and these sound like small numbers, but you go from 1 to 10 people, 10 to 30, 30 to 50, 50 to 80, each kind of band, there's this new challenge that you might not expect in terms of processes, systems, how to get people to work together in a way that makes sense to them, to you, to your clients. So I think, getting to the first 30 was tough, really hard, because Nick and I were doing everything. And, when our staff move on, because obviously everyone has their own career paths, but, some of our staff move on to smaller agencies. I say, listen, being at a small agency, it's a great experience because there's a lot of energy and everyone's very enthusiastic, and there's a feeling of camaraderie and teamwork, and you're very close to the people that you work with. It's also tough because there are very few kind of like defined roles, and you kind of end up doing everything. There aren't layers that like what we have here at Clockwork now. So I think, getting through that first was hard.
You're referring to like from your ops to strat to all of those,
just having like a structure, like an operational structure.
Yes.
It's complicated enough to get 10 people doing the same thing. Get 50 people to do the same thing in the same direction every day at scale. Get 100 people to do the same thing. It's a tough thing to get right. So that's the first thing that was really challenging for us. And then, the second thing, and I speak openly about it, is that, we don't have any, or didn't have any financial background. We're two kids that studied English. And although, we had a fairly rudimentary understanding of accounting and the books and everything, we were very naive about how much work and knowledge it takes to run a business that's growing and to accurately understand where you are financially. And so, we didn't have the right systems in place. We didn't have the right people in place to manage the books. And to be honest with you, we didn't have a good grasp on what was going on. We didn't have reliable information. And so we almost lost all our money in 2017. We almost bankrupted ourselves. Wow. Just because we didn't know where our cash was going. And that was probably the biggest and hardest lesson I've ever had to go through. It's just how seriously you have to take that, and how careful you need to be about who you put in charge of that. Fortunately, we worked very hard. We put our heads down, and our fortunes have changed literally 180. So now we're sitting on cash and we're doing well, and we always know where we are. But
new business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's because we were like traumatized.
Yeah.
Back in 2017.
Never let that happen. Never.
Yeah, it's like a scar in your brain. It never goes away. But that's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. And what about speaking of dealing with your company and managing the people, how did COVID and lockdown and this whole pandemic kind of affected the business and operations?
Yeah, also a good question, man. Well, you work with us, so you know, but I'll go through it. I mean, we had to pivot in 3 days to having 100-odd people in the office to having no one in the office. And I think we were very fortunate because we work in a sort of digital framework anyway, so everyone had computers and whatnot, and we'd updated our IT to the extent that it was reasonably easy to kind of get everyone working on those frameworks. And a huge shout out to our ops team because they literally worked overtime to get that happening. So I'm glad that we were at the point where we were as an agency and a company, that we were mature enough to have those systems in place already, that it was really like switching over. So that's the practical element of it, right? The cultural element of it was really surprising, actually. And I mean, so it's Nick and I that run the business, and I've always been super let's get everyone in a room. I like the energy that you get from having an office that's full of people and the kind of interaction. Nick's more of an introvert and likes kind of, his quiet time and working alone and working in a closed environment. And so he was kind of very happy for, the whole lockdown thing. And I was skeptical, to be honest with you. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was really worried that everything would kind of not crumble, but it would be very hard to hold that organizational structure together. And oddly enough, Nick was right. It was actually better than it's ever been before. And I mean, we just had our best year ever. Despite the challenges of COVID, we continued to grow. Our client, client loss ratio or client churn, it was almost zero for the year. So that means we held on to every single client, which, I mean, if you're in an agency, is almost unheard of. Our staff churn lower than any other year. Staff happiness higher than any other year. So it's weird, it's I think we're going to have to go back to a hybrid. I think there's a lot of value in interaction. And I don't want to lose that. And I think something that concerns me is it's fine when you're a senior member and you've had the time to be experienced and you've got maybe 10 or 15 years under your belt or more. But, the juniors who really learn by osmosis and being around people, I fear are maybe losing out a little bit. Yeah. So
I imagine interns and stuff just arriving.
Yeah.
You don't get that actual personal.
Yeah, I mean, when you're an intern or it's your first job, you have to be on the ground to get an understanding of how everything kind of clicks together, because you have no reference point. You have no prior understanding of what a business even is. So, I worry about those people, and I think they're doing okay. But yeah, overall, I think I was really pleasantly surprised by COVID. I think everyone was. Not by the thing. It's obviously horrific that it happened.
But for operation.
But operationally, it's shown us a lot of a lot of what could be, and it's pressed fast forward on all of those things that might have taken us years. So yeah.
Let's take a quick ad break, and we'll be right back. Yo, we are back with Tom Manners, co-CEO of Clockwork, one of the biggest agencies, PR agencies, and most awarded PR agencies in Africa. We are going to get into this next segment called All Up in Your Business, All Up in Your Business.
I'm excited.
It's not really called that. I'm still looking for the name of the segment, but
You're experimenting, man. It's okay.
Basically, in this segment, we go all up in your business. I went to your social pages and, to your Twitter specifically, and I found a couple of tweets that I would like to talk about.
My personal or Clockworks?
Your personal Twitter page.
Gosh. All right, let's do this.
There's a couple of things we can discuss here.
Let's do it, man.
The first one, we'll start with this one.
It's waiting for this day to happen.
This one, I don't know if you can see from here.
Yeah.
This one is from Clockwork Media on the 14th of July, 2017. It says, hashtag Flashback Friday to when we were little. Today, we're up to nearly 100 talented people. Watch the space. And you said, this was 4 years ago. Times have changed. Things have changed. Please tell us what is happening in this picture. I see that the refrigerator is in the middle of the room.
Yes.
Let's talk about this.
That was our first office, and it was tiny. Yeah, man. So that would have been 2013. Literally just moved into a space that was like previously a kitchen, and we had to make all the boardrooms ourselves. And I think it was like 100 square meters, less maybe 80 square meters, which is tiny, really small. I think there were like 8 of us working in that space. The kitchen was in like the general area. Like I think Mark, who now runs our entire production team, used to sit next to the fridge.
Yeah, he's right there in the
Yeah.
picture. You guys will see him in the picture.
Yeah, he used to sit next to the fridge. And I mean, behind the picture, there's like not much left. It's literally a wall. And we like broke through that wall about 6 months later to get a bit of extra space. But yeah, I mean, that was our first office, man. It was crazy, actually. Yeah. Jeez, you've really gone back, hey?
I went back, okay. We going all up in your business.
Now you're making me nervous.
Don't worry about it. I've got you. Okay. There might be one that we'll leave that one for last. It's not too hectic.
Okay.
Let's talk about this one. I felt a bit shaded, even though I had nothing to do with it. This is also 2017, October 5th. The South African podcast space has a lot to learn.
Yeah. I mean, I got some pretty strong thoughts on that, or had some pretty strong thoughts on that back then. I actually like experimented a little bit with some like a podcast thing, which I never published. But like I'm a trained journalist, and I was really into podcasts back then, and still am. And obviously, American podcasts are really well produced, and there's a lot of time put into them. The format, makes a lot of sense. And I think what I was talking about back then is that South African podcasts were still just one dude talking into mic for 3 hours with no editing. Like, who wants to listen to that?
Nobody.
No one. And like a shitty mic as well. I don't know if I can swear. Sorry.
Yeah, you can.
But like no good equipment. And I was like, even in 2017, it doesn't take a lot to up your game there, especially when you had like the NPR stuff happening in the States and the Gimlet stuff and all the rest of that. Back in 2017, I think Startup was happening. I don't know if you know about Startup.
No.
You should listen to that. It's an incredible podcast about Gimlet Media, and literally
I've heard about Gimlet, yeah.
as the entrepreneurs that started Gimlet, literally recording themselves as they start Gimlet.
Oh, okay.
Which is incredible. It's very, very well done. So I was comparing ourselves to that. And I think it's come a long way, though. There's some really good podcasts out there, like this one.
I appreciate it. We're trying from A to Z. We're going to try take this ship on a long voyage across the open oceans. And
Just don't hit any
successful.
icebergs.
No icebergs, no pirates. We don't play with them pirates. Cool. Next one. Oh, this is a painful one. March 27, 2020. Everybody knows that this is going to be synonymous for the end until the end of days.
Yeah.
But what happened to you was that. So here's the tweet. So our freezer just broke on day 1 of 21. We thought it was going to be 21 days.
It was not.
It was not. It's continued. I am at a loss. What the hell to do? What the hell did you do, Tom?
I bribed a fridge mechanic to come and fix my fridge. Because what was I supposed to do? Day 1 of lockdown, literally. And our fridge went. You can't have no fridge. There was no Uber Eats or anything like that. So, yeah, I literally bribed a fridge mechanic.
Please, help.
I felt bad, but we had no options. So don't bribe people.
Don't bribe.
Unless you're in that situation.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do. I don't know if this is the tour that we are not supposed to speak about, but I found this on your Facebook. It's actually your Facebook cover image.
Yes.
Is this the tour that we are not supposed to talk about?
No. The tour we don't speak about happened many years before that. Okay. That was our... can't remember which year, but like I think it was our second year playing Oppie Copy. And it was one of our better performances. And
you look like you're enjoying looking at the picture. Like you're like, yeah, man.
Yeah, you know what, man? Like we had a lot of fun, and that was kind of like at sort of the height of our popularity. I think there was probably like 1,500 people that pitched up to watch us at that show, which was a good feeling. And you don't get to do that very often in South Africa. You play a lot of club shows and stuff, and unless you're like Fork Off Police Car or something like that, it's always fairly small. So it was a good feeling. Yeah.
What was the name of your band?
Dance You're on Fire. Very edgy.
Super edgy. What did you release? Any projects?
Yeah, we had 2 albums, 7 singles. We had a top, I think 2 top of the 5FM charts as well. We did okay.
That's cool.
We did okay.
Let's go to, this is awesome too. I remember where I was. It's World Cup Day, guys. It's finally here. I am so pumped, guys. Let's get matching tattoos or something. Did anybody take you up on that offer?
I've been trying to convince Nick to get matching tattoos with me for a while, and he hasn't. I mean, I've got a fair amount of them now, so I mean, what's another tattoo?
Yeah.
That was World Cup cricket, and I was
why am I?
Yeah,
why am I thinking it was rugby? September 20.
That was 2019.
Oh,
well, I think.
Okay.
I think. Oh wait, did I? What is the date there? I can't see.
September 20.
Well, then it's World Cup rugby.
Yeah, that was rugby.
Then it's World Cup rugby. So the story ended well.
Yes.
Because I'm a massive cricket and rugby fan, and Nick and I were very spoiled. We're obviously fortunate to be where we are now. So we had a bit of extra cash last year to do something fun, and we were like, should we go to Tokyo or should we go to England to watch the cricket? And because we have clients in the UK, we were like, let's go to England. What could happen? What could go wrong? And then we got absolutely thrashed. But in a funny turn of events, Nick and I were at Edgbaston watching New Zealand and South Africa, and we got pummeled, and we had like 3 New Zealand people behind us just chirping us the entire day, and I had a few too many beers and might have chirped them back. But anyway,
the Israel might have come.
Yeah, it was coming out.
Listen, bro.
But that was the same day we found out that we had won the Standard Bank PR account.
So nothing can get you
so
down.
I was literally like phoning my wife from the line at Edgbaston, being like, "We won the Standard Bank PR account," which is it's one of the biggest PR accounts in the country. So it was a weird day, good and bad. But then we won the rugby, so it was fun. So.
Good and bad. Let's get to the last one. I want to get to the last one. I don't know how you feel about this, but I really wanted to talk about it because I feel strongly about it. And you said what you said. I feel like you're the type of guy who says what you say.
I do.
This tweet is from October 11, 2019. Goes, agency owners that poke fun at awards one year, labeling them as meaningless, and then send out press releases about their win the next. Laughing out loud emoji.
Yeah, I should probably learn to shut my mouth.
No, I think it's true because look, we aren't one of Clockwork isn't one of those agencies that doesn't go out for. We go out for the awards, and we do have, and it is quite an award-winning agency. What were you thinking about you?
So yeah, before I answer that, I think let me frame the awards thing. Clockwork doesn't exist to win awards. We exist to do good work, and I think good work wins awards. And a lot of the good work we do isn't award-winning, and that's okay. It's a speck of the work that we do that actually gets entered, and we're very proud of the stuff that we win. I think what I was talking about is a lot of agency owners, when they're in their sort of nascent years, so the younger years of the agency, maybe don't have the clients or the scope to do really award-winning work. And I mean, we didn't. It took us years to get to a point where we had an opportunity to work with a brand that maybe would give us a brief that we could do some really exciting creative work on. And I was speaking about one particular agency owner who literally the year before was laughing at everyone who was winning, I think it was prisms or bookmarks or anything, on Twitter, actively saying how ridiculous it is that the agency environment covets awards and wants to put them forward. And then the next year, their agency won an award, and then sent out a press release about it. And, I'm a guy that's very passionate about, like you said, don't be disingenuous, don't talk shit. If you really want to win awards and you're not winning awards, just be humble about it and be like, I'm going to get it. We're going to get there, kind of thing. Well done to everyone. Don't turn on your heels and say something entirely different the next year. And it's not just about the agency awards thing. It's about anything. Yeah. Anything. Integrity and how you speak about yourself and everyone around you is really important to me, and to Nick as well. And I don't know. I guess I was poking fun at someone, but I think you probably touched a chord there.
I think it's true. You got to stand on what you said. Like it is what it is. I fully agree. So on Twitter, your bio says husband to Megan, dad to Jonah and Stella. Now, as a businessman, you've accomplished a lot. You've seen a lot of things. I can imagine that your family is above all of that. Please let's talk about exactly what it means to be a family man and a business owner.
Yeah, that's a good question, man. Yeah, obviously, like my family is the most important thing in my life. My kids are, everything to me. They're amazing. They're very little at the moment. I mean, Jonah is 7 in February, and Stella is only 2.5. So we're still in those sort of like rough but very rewarding years where they're just so flipping cute, man. And yeah, I think as a business owner, it can be very hard to be a good parent, and I think you beat yourself up a lot. I know I do. Especially in the early years of Clockwork. Stella didn't get this, but Jonah did, unfortunately. It's like I was working very hard doing everything, literally getting up at 4:30, coming to the office at 5, coming home at like 6 p.m. For years, and that was rough. And he didn't get to see me as much as I think I would have liked to. You got to weigh up, I think, what being a business owner or being successful can provide to your children. Because there's certainly things that I'm able to provide for them that I wouldn't have been able to had I not had Clockworks success to kind of use as a base. But then it's also important to like carve out time to spend with your children, like real meaningful time. And I mean, I think I said earlier, like the hustle thing. I'd like, if you really dig far, you can find me saying hustle, hustle, hustle. And I think it's because I was kind of very locked into this whole like Elon Musk mindset where you must like work 100 hours a week. But I think that's actually, my mind's changed a lot on that. And, I don't think that we should celebrate people who give 100% of their lives to work, especially if they're parents. Like, you need to be a parent. You have a responsibility to your children and to your wife or your significant other to spend time with them. Like, balance is very important. And I genuinely don't believe that you can have balance if you're overworking or not working enough. There's also like the pendulum swings the other way. So balance is hard to achieve, I think, more generally speaking, but it's something that I strive for. So, yeah.
What would you tell a young Tom, a 12-year-old Tom? Now.
Oh, geez, man, that's a tough one. 12-year-old Tom. Well, 12-year-old Tom was like obsessed with cricket and thought he was going to be a sports journalist. So I would tell him, don't expect the Proteas to win the World Cup anytime soon.
How many years did you have to wait?
I'm still waiting.
Oh yeah, we haven't won the Cricket World Cup. We kind of fluffed right at the semis. And
PK, this hurts.
Oh, no.
It hurts.
I'm sorry.
It hurts, yeah. So I would tell him that. And then the other thing I'd tell him is give less shits about what people think about you. Like, that is a journey, like a corner I've really turned in the last 4 or 5 years. And it's very liberating not to care what people think about you. And it's not a disrespectful point of view. I just think people get way too wrapped up in concerning themselves about other people's opinions.
Yeah.
Which 12-year-old Tom definitely did. So, yeah, that's what I'd say.
In the next 5 years for Tom and Clockwork, what do you think that looks like? Or what are you hoping that it will look like?
Yeah, man. So it's a very exciting time for us. We are in the process of setting up our UK office right now. We have our MD and Chief Strategy Officer starting there in the 1st of January. Got some very exciting opportunities. And the South African business is growing at a rapid pace. We are getting more briefs in the above-the-line space with big clients like Netflix, which is exciting. So I think in the next 5 years, if I were to fast forward 5 years, actually we have a defined goal for 2025. But I think what we want to be is a much larger agency with a big global presence. It's not just about the UK for us, it's about other countries as well if we're successful over there. We want to have generated a lot of employment for South Africans that would have otherwise have been situated in countries like the UK or Germany or France or whatever it happens to be, by virtue of the network that we've built. And then I think the most important thing is that, we're doing effective but very creative work in the service of real results for our clients. So effective advertising. And then also, like, this is a very important point for Nick and I, is that in spite of all that growth, and in spite of, maybe we're 300 people, 350 people by that point, we still want Clockwork to be a net positive contributor to people's lives that work for us. It has to be a good experience. You have to take something away when you leave Clockwork and say, it might not have been easy, but it was a fulfilling and human experience to work at that agency. And that sounds like a fluffy thing, but I don't think it is, because advertising has this horrible reputation for killing people. And we want to build a large advertising agency and prove that that doesn't have to happen. So, yeah.
Any message you want to put out there to the listeners and watchers of From A to Z?
So I think a lot of your listeners, I think, will be young creatives or young ad people that are entering the industry. And what I'd say is, have respect for the people that have come before you in terms of the craft of it, and don't trash the structures that exist, because they're a cliche for a reason. So have respect and take some time to learn why it is what it is. But then once you understand what it is, once you understand what the rules are, like, go and break them. But make sure you know what they are to begin with. You can't break the rules unless you know what the rules are. I think everyone wants to go out there and break the rules at 21. I did. But it was a hard journey, and had I taken a bit more time and been a bit more wise, I think we would have been more effective. But then again, like, now I'm old, so, it's easy for me to say that. But that's probably the piece of advice I'd give.
Thank you so much, Tom, for joining me. I think we went from A to Z. We spoke about Tom's upbringing, how he got into advertising, how he met his co-CEO of Clockwork, Nick Simmons. We spoke about his family, spoke about his hopes for Clockwork in the future, and I think we spoke about it all. Do you agree?
Yeah, it was a great chat, man.
We went from A to Z, right?
Yeah, we did. It was cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. Everybody at home, this has been From A to Z. I am your host, P.K. Mukweni. Please go ahead and like, subscribe, comment, share, make sure this thing goes boom. You know what time it is, we out.
How they made it this far, from A to Z. Talk about your family, talk about the goals you reach, talk about the plans you see.